Oh, hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Dylan here, all new Seinfeld. We are going to be interviewing Fred Stoller, who's got an Amazon Kindle out called My Seinfeld Year. Yes, season 6. Fred Stoller wrote the episode The Soup. So good, where obviously Kenny Banya offers him a Armani suit. So we're going to be joined by Fred Stoller in just a second. When he hops on, we're going to be talking to him about his year on the writing staff with Larry, with Jerry, with the whole crew and everything that went into that. You could get the whole story right now for a very affordable price. I think it's like $1.99 on his Amazon Kindle. So I highly recommend it. Also, he came back, we know, the following year to play that small bit part as the guy that can't remember Elaine. And we're going to talk all about that as well. But just briefly, they even changed the name of the character from Pete to Fred because it was so on point of who that character was supposed to be. So Fred's going to talk about why that's funny and not so funny that he was that character so well. So in just a second, we're going to be joined by Fred Stoller. Thank you guys also for watching the all-new Seinfeld episodes that we've been putting on this page. We're going to come back with new episodes real soon. But, it's not like we got a whole writer's room. We don't got Fred Stoller giving us episodes like The Soup. We got one guy. So I appreciate your patience. We got about 3 episodes written for this new season right now, so look forward to that. But there's Fred. All right, Fred. So there should be a thing that says request to join. There it is. We're going to have Fred. Here's Fred joining us. Born in Brooklyn. Kingsborough College. Kingsborough royalty. What's up, Fred?
Did you go to Kingsborough?
I did for summer class because I lived 1 block away, but I went away for college, but I did go to Kingsborough for some summer classes.
Wow. And where in Brooklyn are you from?
Norfolk Street in Manhattan Beach, Fred. You passed my house every day when you went there.
Yes. I always tell people I'm from the part of Brooklyn that's not hip and cool. I was too old. I'm from the
Real Brooklyn. Real Brooklyn.
What? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're from real Brooklyn, not the stuff you see on TV.
Welcome back, Cotter and Saturday Night Live, Brooklyn.
Exactly. Well, it's awesome to talk to you. I appreciate it. Before you came on, I was just telling everybody that you have an Amazon Kindle out. You have multiple Amazon Kindles, but this one, which we'll mostly talk about, was your year on the writing staff of Seinfeld, which is an amazing opportunity. I mean, looking back, have you realized how special that opportunity was, the fact that your episode continually gets played over and over again?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was well aware in 1994, 95, how amazingly big Seinfeld was. I remember the story was, I bumped into Larry David at a surprise birthday party for a mutual friend, Steve Scrovan. And back then, everyone was trying to write a spec script for Seinfeld. I thought they had an idea for a spec script. And I remember stories that there was a thing before your time called Learning Annex. It was before the internet, where they'd have all these classes. And Jason Alexander gave one. And everyone came with a spec script for Jason Alexander. So I knew everyone was trying to write a spec script or, get a Seinfeld idea on. So I knew it was very special.
And so you're at this party and Larry sort of just off the cuff says, why don't you write something?
I think what happened was, wow, so long ago, that someone came up to him, said, hey, did you read my spec script? And he must get that everywhere. And he goes, how come you never wrote one? And I knew him from the 80s. And I said to the people watching, a spec script is a sample of your writing, and you hope to get staffed. And I said, I never liked the idea of a spec script, writing something won't get done, but just to show you a sample. And he goes, write one. Nothing will happen, but I will read it. So he kept saying nothing will happen. But then I knew I had to try to write one because, the fact Larry David said he would read it.
And funny enough, in your spec script, you ended up writing some things that ended up in a different episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah, my initial premise of my spec script, which he liked, was, and again, this was before the internet, where someone wanted to set me up on a blind date, and And now you could just, find them on Facebook or Google and to see what they look like. So back then you couldn't do that. So I jokingly thought, what if I hired a police composite artist so this person can say what they look like so I can have an image to get excited or not. So that he liked that. And for some reason, it wasn't finding its way into my the scripts. But then Carol Leifer, who was a staff writer, had an idea about a police thing. I go, you could use my composite thing in it, and she did. But actually, another part of it, my spec script stayed. Originally, it was for Jerry. He flies in a girl from London, and it happened to me. And she kept saying, "Why do you say what? You got to say pardon." So Larry thought that's too losery for to happen to Jerry, so they made it for Elaine.
Amazing. And so that was your episode, The Soup. Now, if you got approved for more stories, would you have written more episodes? It just so happens that only really one came together in that way.
Yeah. After that, I was having trouble getting another Jerry story approved. You have to have, Jerry, George, Kramer, and Elaine stories approved. Then you could write another script. And Jerry doesn't have as many flaws, so he's hard to write for. I did come up with something, and that script ended up not happening. So but he still liked the story about Kramer has to apologize to a monkey, and so that one was used in the face painter. So I got story credit for that.
Okay, so let's talk about your episode, The Soup, which I'm not really sucking up to you because I really just talked to you last week for the first time. Like, that is an episode that is an all-time episode. Like, that one stands out from the pack. It's probably in the top 10 of all episodes of all time.
Actually, just being modest, I never see it in, they used to have the recount of the top 10 songs. That never, it was always, the yada yada and this and that.
No, because people don't understand the show, really. They don't understand the show. The fact that you took something so small as what constitutes a meal and made it a whole episode, that's what is beautiful about the show, and that's what you did such a good job of.
Oh, thank you.
And so let's talk about what the real stories were and what ended up on screen. So you were saying you had this story for Jerry about this girl that visited you. That ended up going to Elaine. Amazing. And that happened in real life?
Yes. In 1990, I was flown to London when I was doing stand-up. I met a woman. It was very exotic. And then I bought her an open-ended ticket. And it was almost like she gave the ticket to someone who looked like her. She was a different person. It's so hot here. Here's my water.
Right. She basically just used you for the flight.
Yes. Well, yeah, she would get mad if I said what instead of pardon. And then after 2 days, I was sleeping on my couch, and then she left and ended up staying with someone else.
Now, when in that scene, when they're in the taxi and they muddled some words under their breath, is there anything actually written there?
I don't remember.
Because I think Elaine says this should be interesting, and then the guy says that's because you're something, and then I don't think we make out what he actually says.
Yes, good question.
We'll come back to it.
Usually, when you write an episode, Jerry and Larry rewrite a lot, but a lot of what I did remained, like with Banya and saying I'm huge, Jerry. That was a real guy. Yeah.
Right, and so this storyline was based on a real life. Somebody offers you a suit, and you say sure, and he wants you to take him for a meal to get even.
Yeah, this comedian, he said it was $1,000. I found out years later he got it at some discount rack. And then we went to Jerry's Deli, which I don't think is around anymore. And
a few, yeah.
There's one in Vint, but not the one we went to. And he got soup and soda. He goes, I'm going to save the meal. And in real life, I was more wimpy. I didn't go wait, and
right.
Jerry would say right away, what are you talking about? So he really did that like 2 or 3 times, just had soup.
Well, I actually think for Jerry, because Jerry's always sort of made fun of that he's like a weak actor, but I think this episode, it happens to be a very strong episode for Jerry, and sort of his line readings with when he's dealing with Banya is very funny. This is it.
Yeah. Oh,
This is the meal.
yes, that was fun.
So how much from the table reads to the shoot do line readings change? Because I think what's amazing about Seinfeld is every line that's ever said on that show is said perfectly. So do the actors take some time to figure it out?
That's interesting that many shows I've guest starred on, there was a lot of changes from the table read to the taping. With Seinfeld, it wasn't so much because it's not as jokey. You know, it's more situational. And Larry really had it down from the table read. There would be a few, like, alternates thrown in on tape night, like, but it wasn't always like Friends where they would do a
Right.
shooting and then huddle for a half hour and come up with funnier jokes. Because it wasn't jokey. Like I said, it was very situational. So the situation stayed. So that was an anomaly. Actually, when I was on as an actor, my name was originally Pete. So a
Right.
lot of names changed. Like originally, but
Well, Banya
yeah,
wasn't even Banya originally, right?
I called him Rory Feldman in the thing, but Larry would change names a lot in the scripts. Yes, he changed names.
And
Yeah,
so the Kramer, I want to come back to the Kramer story, which is about getting rid of a refrigerator, which is a true story from your life, which stayed. But actually, the George storyline was different originally. So, what was the original George storyline for that episode?
the George storyline happened when I worked on Dumb and Dumber as an actor, and I remember.
Get off the phone.
Yeah, and these two women were very attractive with the wardrobe girls, I like the situation like I'll go out with either one of them, and I wasn't sure which one to kind of flirt with because I don't want to. Maybe this one liked me and the other one didn't, and then she doesn't want to be the second one. So I had it where George, I think at a theater, there were two women, and he was trying to find out which one liked him because he didn't want to blow it and flirt. And for some reason, they made something with the maneuver like that was
Right. Well, were you involved in creating that storyline of, okay, the waitress is attracted to him. He should walk back in, which was funny. The go back in, which was funny.
Seinfeld was different than all sitcoms in that there really isn't a table. Most sitcoms have what's called a table where you pound it out, the stories. With Seinfeld, you get a Jerry, Elaine Kramer, and George Story approved. Then you map it out. You go, okay. And then you write it, and then you hand it in, and you're not involved usually in the process of what they do to it, Jerry and Larry.
Well, was there any moment, did you connect with Larry and Jerry as a writer and saying, I really liked what they did with that? Because I think there was moments that they included. I think one of a great thing when they did, which was very organic to the show, was when they have the conversation of whether that's a walk or something. It's a date or something. I said, or something.
Wait, which
That's a
story is
date.
that with the waitress?
Yeah, with the waitress. So from them to include in your story, did you sort of give your own feedback, or at that point it's
No,
like they're the boss?
that was theirs. Like I said,
Yeah.
when you hand it in, you kind of they do it to it what they do to it.
Right.
It
And
was
now
isolating that process.
I'm sorry to hear. I know you for everybody watching, you have to pick up this Amazon Kindle. It's very affordable. Check it out. It's amazing detailed account of Fred working on the Seinfeld staff that year. And it didn't sound that fun, really, Fred.
Oh yeah, his leaf blowers. God, Can you hear this?
I hear you perfectly.
Hey, something. It wasn't, but it's like being a corporate on Wall Street, corporate job. I didn't really go the writing route. I got a lot of guest stars after Seinfeld, and it was less stressful. Like I can probably survive on Saturday Night Live as a writer or an actor. I hear that's really cutthroat, and
Right.
you got to pal up to writers and vie, and so it's if you want to make a lot of money and be a careerist, it's not about fun. It's about
Right.
those other things I don't have.
Well, your time was well worth it because you really created something everlasting and special. The Kramer scene, their storyline, originally you had included that you see him getting rid of the refrigerator, which when you watch the episode back, it's funny because there is sort of room for more Kramer stuff. So at what point was that cut out? Was it very early on cut out? Did they consider it?
Well, a rewrite. What happened was a friend of mine, a crazy friend, got rid of his refrigerator. He wanted more room in his kitchen. And I had like a very slapsticky thing where Kramer puts it on his back and it's
Totally. You could see it. You could see it.
uh, for whatever reason, they cut that. And I, like an idiot, I told Michael Richards, Kramer,
Right.
I felt bad that he didn't have a lot to do, which is stupid. And I opened my mouth and said, I'm sorry. He goes, put it back in, ask Larry. And I asked Larry, what are you talking about? You don't talk to the actors. He yelled at me. So, yes, I added stuff I thought was good, but you can't argue they know success, but that's part of the process.
And so how do you take those stories that are all true and how do you craft it into Seinfeldese? Like, how do you make it work for that show? How do you make it funny? How do you make it conversational? How do you make it fit that system that we all know?
Well, someone said when you create a show, you write it in your voice. When you work on a show, you're writing in someone else's voice. So I'm not saying it was easy, but you kind of get the essence, of that those situations.
Right. Very funny and very good. And so you mentioned that you might be interested in, or you were thinking about turning your year there, which you wrote in this Kindle, but into like a movie version of that year. So what would that look like in your imagination?
At first I thought, like that movie, My Favorite Year, about
Right.
a writer on the show of shows. This was the opposite because it was what it was like to be a writer on the biggest show, but not so spectacular. Not My Favorite Year. But I guess I didn't I just tackled what I could in the Kindle single, my Seinfeld.
Well, it's very, very well written. I think that was one of the reasons I was so adamant to reach out to you because I think the way you write is just really easy for people to connect to. So the politics on set of Seinfeld, sort of, what did Larry bring to the table and what did Jerry bring to the table? So as the writing crew, you would go to Larry for some things and Jerry for some things. What was like the dichotomy between them?
Mostly Larry. You had to, again, it wasn't like a table like other, so you had to track Larry down. He'd either be on the set, in casting, in his office, in the editing room. And you couldn't write until he approved your stories, then the order of it. And one time, like an idiot, I took a liberty. I tried out on these other writers a Kramer story. That's good, and I mapped it out. You don't map it out till I approve it. So you have to kind of find Larry and be aggressive, and I wasn't good at that. And sometimes, you'd go in their office when there was an opening, and you'd pitch to both Jerry and Larry. But Larry was the one who was more, you'd get him in different spots. You try to corner him, not so much Jerry.
And do you think it'd be to people's surprise, maybe like how, sensitive and empathetic Larry actually was compared to his overall anger that people have come to be aware of?
I found him, I was intimidated, and I was some empathy. He's the type of guy that he'll lash out and yell and then feel bad for a second. Oh, come on, but that was stupid. So I think he's similar to the Curve guy. I think. Oh, I keep pressing this because it goes out. Um, I think he Curve is more like he's what he's thinking,
Right.
but he says it on Curve. So he's kind of like that.
That's good. That's good intel.
Yes.
Okay, so then you finish your year. They don't bring you back, which is not that surprising because generally they sort of have writers there for just 1 year. But actually, on that note,
Then a lot of those guys from Harvard, they were keeping longer after me. But yeah, a lot of people were eating up and spit out their premises. Yes.
well, on that note, there is a guy in the story that you tell was sort of not so nice to you, and it's really not fun to read about. But my question is like the opposite of that. Was there someone that was like crushing it that you were like, wow, if I could just write like him or, be comfortable like him, that was there like a role model at that time for you?
Well, there were these two young guys from Harvard who were a team, and they've gone on. Alec Berg, who created Barry and Silicon Valley, so they had the advantage of each other. Like I said, it was very isolating in that you were on your own, and like you said, this guy pretended to be my mentor, but he was kind of negative. So
Hate that guy.
yeah, so basically, I mean, it was almost like calculus or algebra where you had to figure out this leads to this, and he gives him this, and that makes a building fall down. And so it was really all the stories had to connect. So I don't think you had to really figure out, like I said, like a puzzle. And I don't know if I was smart like some of the other people with that. I Yeah, I don't know if envy's the word, but I knew I just didn't have quite a muscle like some of these others did,
But
who
at
were
the end of the
careers.
day, a pretty nice lifestyle that you had for yourself. You got to go to the set every day. You had an office. You had a paycheck. You got lunch. You were around the table reads. You were on set. I mean, that's like the dream for most people.
Oh, yes. I mean, as arduous as I make it, I realize I was part of TV history and, got to see a lot of, talk to a lot of people on the set, actors. The guy who just died, he played Poppy.
Yeah.
But just seeing these people, these seminal characters, yeah, no, it was. And I would walk on the set all the time trying to come up with ideas. Maybe something would stimulate me. So, as I've said when I'm on Cameo, when I talk about being on Seinfeld, I always say my favorite thing was being in Monk's Diner. My scenes were with Elaine as Fred Yerkes, but the one that was amazing was first I had to sit on the stool and they say action just to be part of that iconic set. I mean, it must be amazing for an extra to sit at Monk's, just to be at Monk's.
Yeah. And
So,
so this is when you're back as an actor. It's the following year. You just get a call last minute to show up for an audition. Did you have to audition?
no, it was odd. I think what happened was they were having trouble. They were auditioning people, and it wasn't right. And Larry said, Fred should be this guy. He was kind of the schmucky guy. And they called me and they said, get down here for a table read. That's where the first day everyone reads the script. So I rushed over there, not having no idea what I was going to do. And, you want to prepare. So I'm sitting there, my first time reading the script of a Seinfeld episode, just winging it. But it turned out the table read, I got a lot of laughs just being myself. Right.
That's gotta feel good.
My first line was, "Hey George, hey Jerry," and they laughed. So it was pretty magical. Just I knew, okay, I could give them what they want, just being Fred.
Yeah, I mean, and that first line where you say when Jerry's leg falls asleep that at least you have something to do, that wasn't there originally. Larry was just so inspired by you.
That I don't remember, but yes, there were some things like that thing with Elaine where talk about my mother. Actually, Larry is older than me, but we went to the same high school, not at the same time, and
Right.
so that line, my mother, there's no transportation getting from the subway station to the house. So Sheepshead Bay, it's true. You had to walk like a mile to
Right.
go to from there to Nostrand Avenue, Brown Street, where I live, from Sheepshead Bay. So a lot of it was he made it more. Originally, the guy's name was Pete Babcock. Then he changed it to Fred Yerkes, who Jeffrey Yerkes was a writer's assistant. So he liked using names of people he knew or who were on staff.
Right. Now, most regular people in real life, when they walk around, if they watch Seinfeld, they always think about the show and how real life moments can relate to the show or could be in the show. You wrote on the show. Is that something you do in real life and think about, oh, if you were still writing on the show or if the show was still on?
Yeah, well, I have dreams. I'm back on staff. It's like 20 years later, trying to come up with ideas. So, yeah, a lot of things. Oh, that could have been a premise. Yep.
That's amazing. Well, Fred also has a book out called 5 Minutes to Kill about the 1989 young comedian showcase. You had Rob Schneider, David Spade. How do you say the woman's name correctly?
Harem.
Jan Karam, who almost was Elaine on Seinfeld.
Yes.
And then she came back to play one of Jerry's girlfriends. When I watched it, I think actually you stood out the most because it's 1989, and I think the style of comedy that everybody was sort of delivering was very of 1989. I think when you watch comedy today, everything's way more like self-deprecating and more like personal stories. So have you seen like comedy transform since then, and how even Rob Schneider, David Spade, the other comedians, their comedy has transformed, and your own even?
Think, I think a lot of it changed with the MTV half hour comedy hour where it became more snarky. So David Spade and Rob Schneider were precursors because when I got into stand-up comedy, I was just to try to be a character actor, and I never went into it to try to be cool. It wasn't about being cool. Like in my generation, like you said, it was Seinfeld, Larry Miller, well, of course, Eddie Murphy, but David Brenner I grew up watching, Robert Klein. So comics weren't cool. And then it became rock and rollish. So I think, like I said, Rob Schneider was like a kind of like Elvis,
Right.
Bonds, and David Spade was that whole MTV were cool, and then there was that VH1 Best Week Ever stuff. It became more snarky and cool. So, and then Drake Sather, who sadly died,
Mm-hmm.
he was kind of like a pretty boy, tall, good-looking
That's
guy.
what was funny about him, that he had a certain look and his shtick was like the opposite. It was very dark.
Yes, yes. But yeah, so I think my style was more 80s, like one-liners, like then it changed, cool. I think even the self-deprecating ones today are still kind of hip and cool and snarky and brooding and, I think I'm more like, like a nebbish. Now they're nerds, which is cool. They're like, even Brian Posehn is sort of cool because he talks about anime and robots. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So even though he's self-deprecating, even Patton Oswalt or Dana Gould, they may seem self-deprecating, but to me, they're more like the hipster kind of, talking about pop culture a lot.
Okay, now, so what does your day-to-day look like, today in 2020? You've had so many guest spots, too many to count. You've written a bunch of books. You've written episodes of shows. What is like the new day-to-day for you? What's your goals? What's
this Tic Tac story real? I don't know. Larry wrote that stuff. I don't think it is real. Just to answer the question.
Yeah, that was very funny.
Yes. Well, there's a pandemic, so actually, I'm on my own recording and audio of 5 Minutes to Kill, and that I do in little spurts because cars go by, and I'm actually busy doing cameos, and I'm just trying to come up with ideas and not a lot of auditions because of the
Right.
pandemic. So it's fun because now with TikTok and Cameo, people are who grew up watching me on Drake and Josh and a lot of these shows. It's just very heartening that I was part of their
Yeah.
childhood, so I'm just getting a lot of feedback on TikTok on
Well, your
Cam.
energy is good on TikTok. Like, it definitely stands out. Your energy on TikTok is good.
I like it because it's not like as snarky as Twitter to be a Twitter person. I never really did too good on Twitter. You got to be kind of, snarky and
Right.
pop culture-y. It's just more sweet on TikTok. Just like, hey, remember this? Oh, we loved you as a kid. Or this is a fun story on the set of this.
Right.
It's not as hipstery or depressing as Twitter.
Yeah, it's a very fun, organic place. We're on IG Live now, though, so make sure everybody checks out Fred's Kindle books, My Seinfeld Year and 5 Minutes to Kill, and you even have a third book, right?
Well, my sign, maybe we'll have you back is a book about my
About
dad.
your guest
Did you
spots.
grow up loving Seinfeld? Like, when did you really get into it? A little bit.
Well, okay, so I'm just in the house as like a 4-year-old kid. It's just on, like my parents are just laughing at it. I think one of my earliest memories is like I was in the pool. So it was just on when I was like 4. I'm not really watching it. And then as I get older, it's on TBS and Fox and Channel 11. So I'm just watching all the reruns. And then it just became an obsession of mine that
Right.
it's just all I think about and talk about. And people ask me like, what's my passion in life? And I really have trouble mentioning anything besides Seinfeld. And I think just being where we're from, it's just their point of view is just, it just connects so greatly.
Yes.
So going back, thank you for asking that question, by the way. So if you could go back and do it all again on that Seinfeld year, would you do anything different? And what would it be?
Good question. I think I would just do what I did, try my heart out to come up with ideas. But, well, knowing what I know now, I wouldn't be manipulated by the quote unquote mentor who was trying
Right.
to measure. I think I wouldn't have given away as much cool memorabilia and scripts and Seinfeld yo-yos. I would have held on to more stuff. I had so many stuff. I gave a lot to my friend who in Park Slope worked in a flea market and sold Seinfeld scripts. Um, I did appreciate that I was at this place that, well, it's sort of like when I did a guest spot on Raymond. It wasn't the same, but it just had the same feel that I knew it would be on TV land for,
Right.
decades.
And so when you got the Raymond gig, was it part of the conversation that like, oh, people suggest you look like Raymond? And was that part of
Yeah,
you getting the job?
you should be on Raymond. You should be, well, easier said than done. You should be on
Yeah.
Raymond. All right, already. All right. It's not that easy. But then I auditioned for a part that actually went to Brian Posehn. Him and Odenkirk had some thing, and I didn't get it. Hey, Ray. And but then they, my friend Steve Skrovan was a writer, and he said, in the audition, they were saying, he's so much like Ray. If there's a cousin, you'll be the guy. And then there was an episode I was cut from, but then these two writers' assistants came up with the idea, a whole episode about cousin Gerard.
Well, I think you've done a tremendous amount of great work in life, and obviously
Yeah.
contributed to the history of the greatest show of all time, which will last forever, which is something really cool. Even I paused it when it said written by Fred Stoller, because like that's just the coolest thing ever. Like,
Yeah. I had what did I do with so many things? A frame picture of written by Fred Stoller, but yes, I still have this script. The Soup.
Yeah. Oh, was there any alternate titles for that episode?
No, that one I think stuck. That was The Soup. The only thing is, when I say that, people think I wrote The Soup Nazi, and no, 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 no.
Mm,
That The Soup was first. So I bumped into Spike Furstein, and he
right.
said
Who wrote Soup Nazi?
he was nervous that they wouldn't do his thing because they already did The Soup, but obviously they did do The Soup
Yeah.
Nazi.
This is it, you know.
Yeah.
This is the meal.
Yeah.
It's just so good. All right, Fred, we're gonna let you go. I appreciate it. I mean,
One of my favorite lines was
well, yeah,
when Banny goes, "I've been doing some thinking." Like he called him right back. How much thinking he was. That got such a big laugh. I'd like my suit back.
right. Well, how much did Steve Heitner's performance as Kenny fit to what your envisionment for the character was, or did it exceed it beyond what you even imagined?
I think so. You know, I brought in Bruce Smirnoff, the guy who really did it in real life. He was more Jewish, you know, more Jerry, come on. And Heitner
Right.
is not what I expected, but actually, Larry wanted John Lovitz, wasn't available, and I'm kind of glad he wasn't because I think maybe John Lovitz would have
No,
been.
but Banya kills it. He's just so good.
Yeah.
Partner. And then John Lovitz comes back in another episode where he
Yeah.
has his own moment as well.
He was
What
on
about
Larry's.
what about some of your favorite moments from your year, just like on set with people, like not related to your episode? What stands out as a memory in that respect?
You know, I love animals. I love when the monkey was on the set or the chimp. That was fun. I'm trying to think. Who were just seeing Jason Alexander. Just he would just get laughs, but there were no punchlines. You know, just watching and Michael Richards, watching his process. He would pace back and forth, doing the lines over and over.
I mean, that's remarkable how much they do it over and over, really, and to keep it fresh, and the audience is laughing every time.
Yes. Trying to think which actors on the set were fun to talk to.
Well, you did give this. It's in the book, but you gave Michael Richards a ride home one day, and you had a little like heart to heart. You had like a few minutes together.
I mean, that's an amazing thing. He usually took his bike to work, and it was raining. He goes, "Hey," he chased me down, drive me home. So just things like that. I'm getting goosebumps now thinking of driving Michael Richards home, and yeah, little things like that. And I was an extra in the face painter in the hockey scene, so that was fun. Um, so just
And when you came back as an actor, though, it was sort of reinforced that like this is what you're meant to be doing, acting. Even though you're a tremendously talented writer, acting is more your destiny, in a sense.
I grew up just loving character actors, like on the Bob Newhart show, or Mary Tyler Moore wanting to be a weird guy. I never really grew up wanting to be a TV writer. I mean, I wasn't really a careerist. You know, some comedians loved the Dick Van Dyke show and wanted to do that. You know, sit around a table. That was never my dream. I could have made a lot more money, but in a house, not an apartment, but I just wanted to just love being on sets and having different adventures.
Is your mother still with us today?
She is actually in memory care. Her mind isn't so good, so she is not luckily aware of COVID because she'd be freaking out. So we don't know how much longer she has. Her vitals are good, but she's lost 18 pounds. So
Well, we send our condolences, of course, from the community here. We're sorry to hear. Do you feel though, in her later years that you've connected with her and she ended up expressing that she was proud of you and she was happy for what you did?
you know, other people validated me. It's kind of funny in her retirement community. Nanny. I didn't realize I did 4 episodes of The Nanny, how big that show was. It wasn't cool like Seinfeld, but people loved The Nanny, young and old. So I think when people in the retirement community knew who I was, or my father had photos of me in his little TV room from shows, and people would come in to repair. Oh, I know him. So when I got validated by other people, that's when she got proud.
That's nice. That's good to hear. All right, Fred. Will you let me
Well,
take you for a cup of coffee and we'll talk more in life?
I'm always at farmers market, so let's. It's fairly safe for COVID, so let's do that sometime.
I can't wait. Thank you so much for doing this and keep
So
writing. And we're going to keep reading your stuff. And again, one of the best episodes ever. So
very
thank you.
talented, and let's get through this COVID stuff.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This was made for neurotic Jews from Brooklyn.
Thing is, though, having different traumas, as I say, I've practiced for this.
Right. Exactly.
Do a lot of trauma. In other ways, mostly in my head, my imagination. So I've learned the traumas in our head are worse than the external world.
Totally. That's you're creating your own reality right there, man. I mean, that's where it's at.
Yeah. So I prepared for this stuff. So yes. So, but I feel bad mostly for like people in their prime, or some kids on a college football scholarship, or right now I feel bad for the people being evicted, living month to month. So I could just bask in the glory on TikTok.
Absolutely. As anyone would, 2020 in
Yes.
America and beyond. All
Yes.
right. God bless you, Fred. Thank you so much. We'll stay in
Thank
touch.
you. Great
Okay.
talking
Bye.
to you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Thank you. Thank you guys for hanging out and watching with us. It's Fred Stoller. He's so amazing. We're going to come at you with some brand new, all new Seinfeld episodes real soon. Keep you posted on where that coffee happens with Fred Stoller. So thank you guys so much. I'm Dylan. We'll see you soon, and keep it here for more fun stuff. Bye. Now, hopefully when I press end, I could save this, right? If I just press end, it just saves. Anybody? Cool. Pressing it, doing it. 3, 2.